According to the calendar here in Malaysia, today is a full moon day, the Uposita. In Thailand, it's in the calendar for tomorrow. But according to the conventions of the calendar, here we are. It's the Uposita day. So I thought, first of all, to people having taken the 8 precepts for the day, and first of all to speak a little bit about that and where the origin of the 8 precepts came from. We can follow these forms, and they're passed on from our elders and from our guides, our teachers, our mentors. But sometimes we're not sure, or we don't know where these traditions, these customs, these forms come from. So the Uposita precepts are quite unusual insofar as it seems that from reading the Pali scriptures, that rather than these being requested by anybody else, this was a pattern of a practice that occurred to the Lord Buddha just in his own mind. And he was considering what would be a good way for the lay community to develop their practice. And so almost all of the other teachings, somebody asks a question, or there's a particular encounter, and then the teachings arise from that. But in this instance, the Buddha just creates a structure, a form of practice from his own initiative. So it's unusual that he did this. But he was considering what would be beneficial for the lay community. Other spiritual groups have ways of, say, marking a regular period of increased practice or dedication, devotion. What would be good for the lay community, the upasika, his disciples, his lay disciples. And I find it very, very interesting the logic that the Lord Buddha used in order to establish the Uposita precepts and the 8 precepts, just as you've recited them. So this is his consideration was all their lives, the Arahants never deliberately take the life of another living being. From the time of enlightenment until they pass away, it's impossible for an Arahant to deliberately take the life of another living being. Wouldn't it be useful for the lay community to adopt that same standard, and in that way they will be living as the Arahants do, and that will be for their long-lasting welfare and happiness. So too with the other precepts. All their lives, from the time of enlightenment till their passing away, an Arahant cannot deliberately take something that does not belong to them, that's not given to them. So wouldn't it be useful for the lay community to follow this same mode of conduct, and in that way that will be for their long-lasting benefit and happiness, because they will be living as the Arahants do. Similarly with brahmacharya, the Arahants never deliberately engage in any kind of sexual activity, and so wouldn't it be useful for the lay people on this one day of the week, on the moon days, to adopt this same kind of conduct, and in that way they will be living as the Arahants do, and that will be for their long-lasting welfare and happiness, and so for all of the 8 precepts. So to me that's very significant, because when we think about precepts or rules, it's like, don't do this, no, 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 yeah, right? Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. But if we look at it from the Buddha's own logic, his own reasoning, it's like, this is the natural disposition, the natural inclination of the pure heart. If the heart is totally liberated, it's impossible to deliberately take life. It's impossible to take what is not given. Sexual activity is completely uninteresting. It's impossible to engage in sexual activity. It's impossible to tell a lie. Intoxicants are completely uninteresting. The mind would not incline towards any kind of deliberate distortion or intoxication, and so on. So I feel that changes a bit the perspective on the 8 precepts, and so that when we think of it in that way, it's rather than a rule saying don't do don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, as a kind of a barrier or a limitation. Rather, it's encouraging us to look into our own heart, to find that in us which is completely non-violent, that which is completely honest, that which is uninterested in engaging in sexual activity with other human beings, that we are say, relating to each other as brothers and sisters. Okay? So in Malaysia, Singapore, you all call each other sister, brother. So, very good. That's, I would say, is exactly in accord with this same principle. There's also an interesting pair of dialogues that the Lord Buddha had with two different wanderers in the Anguttara Nikaya, the book of the book of the Nines. Then there's two different wanderers from different religious groups that the Buddha met with, one called Suttava and the other one called Sajja. And he's in a similar way explaining the nature of the Arahant, or the conduct of the Arahant. So these are people from different religious background, different religious groups. So the Buddha has met them and is explaining. He said that it's impossible, it cannot be that an Arahant, an enlightened one, will deliberately take the life of another living being. So and then the first, when he's talking to Suttava and Sajja, then the first four are the same as the first four of the 8 precepts. But then the fifth one, interestingly, when he talks with these two, he says that an Arahant cannot lay up a store of things for the future. That what we think of as renunciation, or like for our monastic rule, as a bhikkhu, if you give me some food this morning, I can't keep anything for tomorrow. There's a rule to relinquish it. And in the Buddha's description to these two wanderers, Suttava and Sajja, he says an Arahant would never do that anyway. Like they can't keep anything for the next day. They just live on what the day brings and then relinquish the rest. They're not interested in carrying a lot of things around or making any kind of guarantee that they'll have some food or some security for the next day. So then the last details are that when he talks to Suttava, he says that an Arahant is incapable of defaming or criticizing the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and also if they are ordained, they would never think about leaving the training. They would never relinquish the training. And when he speaks to Sajja, the second one, he changes the last piece a little bit and says that an Arahant is impossible to be guided by fear, by aversion, by craving, by favoritism or desire, and by views and opinions. So these are the 4 agati, or the 4 biases. So they can't be, they won't be unfair, and they won't be dishonest or aggressive or acquisitive, or show favoritism to anybody. An Arahant is very even and fair, and I say balanced in the way they relate to all other beings. So to me, I feel this is a very helpful way of looking at the 8 precepts. When you take the Uposatha precepts, it's like a day to spend living as the Arahants do. Oh, a bit of a different perspective. And so that the Buddha realized that by adopting the behavior, by taking that as an idea, okay, let's try and do this, we make it as an effort, as a deliberate choice, then by seeing the results of those choices, by deliberately not harming any other creature, by not stealing, by not engaging in sexual activity or not lying and so on, we then see the results in our own life, in our own mind of those behaviors. So then we realize, oh, this is great. Spend a whole day living in a modest, kind, respectful, harmless way, and the results are peacefulness. Okay, very good. So we directly experience the good results of those behaviors. So then we're encouraged to increase that, and that's why he said this will be for their long-lasting welfare and happiness, because we experience directly the beautiful, pleasant, happy results of living according to our own pure heart, and not being, say, motivated or pulled around by our fears, our desires, and our aversions. One of the other aspects of Dhamma practice, or say entering upon a opposite day like today, a day of meditation practice, is, and when you have someone literally sitting up on the high seat giving instructions, and so there's a model, or like all our conditioning through being in school, in primary school, secondary school, in the university environment. There's a teacher and there's a student. The student should listen to the teacher and do what the teacher says, whether it's in the academic world or in the Dhamma world. Or the Ajahn says, do this, don't do that. Okay, follow instructions, be a good student, right? That's how we're conditioned. Be a good student, listen to what the teacher's saying, follow the instructions. So in that, with great sincerity and energy, we can take up those instructions with, I should do this, I shouldn't do that, I should be this way, I shouldn't be that way, I've got to get more of this, I've got to get rid of that. Right? Sounds familiar? I'm not reading anybody's mind. It's just, this is how it is. We receive instruction, do this, don't do that. This is good, this is bad. I should get rid of this, and I should become that. I should. So unconsciously, we very easily practice Dhamma in accordance with self-view, with Sakkaya Ditthi. I should, I shouldn't, I must, I ought to, I. So, because we're trying to follow the instructions and do what the teacher says, we miss the fact that the ego, the self-view, is driving, has taken over the wheel. And this is very, very, again, if you've noticed this, you're not the only one. This is extremely common. And often, the more dedicated, the more sincere, the more energetic we are, the less we notice that it's I should, I must, I have to, I need to get rid of this, I need to become that. So one of the again, I would say the aspects of the enlightened ones is that the practice is always based on mindfulness and wisdom. There's a very long Pali word, Dhamma Dhamma Patipada, which means practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma. And so it's maybe not very familiar to many of you, but this is one of the qualities that the Lord Buddha outlined as being, say, essential for a cause for stream entry. It's the fourth of the four qualities supportive of stream entry, practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma. So I like to emphasize this because it's so common, not just here in Malaysia or in Asia, but in the West as well, for us to miss that. We can be very sincere, very dedicated, work really hard at the practice, but not notice how much it has been taken over by the atta, by the sense of self, by the ego, and the habit of I-making and mine-making, ahankara, mamankara. So that this Dhamma Dhamma Patipada, practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma, it's a subtle difference between practicing Dhamma in accordance with self-view. But I feel it makes all the difference in the world, because then our sincerity, our effort to work hard and to follow the instruction is then not being guided by self-view, but instead is being guided by mindfulness and wisdom, sati panya. So I hope you can understand the difference between those. And so it's really practicing based on self-view, or practicing Dhamma based on Dhamma itself, or on a Dhamma-centered perspective, or nature-centered perspective. So during today, I hope to give instruction and work with you all in order to help you all get a feeling for how that operates. So that it's if there can be that change of perspective, whether our effort and intention are built around mindfulness and wisdom, then the result is liberating. It's peaceful. If our practice is always based on me trying to get something, me trying to get rid of something, then almost inevitably the result is dukkha. Along with some good results we get from the practice, there can be a lot of frustration or impatience, disappointment, and so forth. And so that it makes a big difference if we can learn how to set direction and put forth effort based on mindfulness and wisdom. So sometimes in teachings of meditation and in reading the Buddha's teaching, then we take the principle, desire is the cause of suffering. Yeah, right? Second noble truth, very familiar probably to everyone. So desire is the dukkha samudaya, the cause of suffering. So then we can assume that every kind of desire, every kind of setting a direction is therefore a problem, or is going to cause more dukkha. So sometimes the approach to meditation is don't do anything, like don't take any action, don't interfere, and you don't follow any kind of desire. But I would suggest that's misunderstanding the Buddha's teaching, because the Eightfold Path involves a lot of doing. The right view, samadhi, is the first element. The second one is samma sankappo, right intention or right resolution, right aspiration. So samma sankappo is about setting a direction. Like, I want to go that way. Like, so today we came from the Chittarama house to Bob's here in PJ. So we had to set the direction. Okay, this is where we want to go. So we setting a direction is an important part of our practice. So samma sankappo. So if any kind of setting a direction was, say, against Dhamma, then it couldn't be a part of the Eightfold Path. Similarly, samma vayamo, the sixth element, right effort. If every kind of doing, every kind of engaging was somehow stressful, that any kind of working with the mind was any kind of action was stressful, then there couldn't be any samma vayamo on the Eightfold Path. Does that make sense? Well, sometimes the way we relate to work is that, and I'm impressed with the number of people not at work today, at least engaging in Dhamma work instead of being at the office or in the college or wherever. So it can easily be, I'm really looking forward to the weekend. I can't wait till I retire, or I'm going to have a holiday. And even when we meditate, when the bell goes, sometimes, thank goodness that's over, right? Again, I'm not reading anybody's mind, but it's very, very common that even the meditation is work that I should be doing, and that the most peaceful moment of the meditation is when it stops. That's the wrong way around, right? So it can be that we feel any kind of doing, any kind of activity, any kind of work is intrinsically stressful, and we look forward to when we don't have to work, don't have to bother, quote unquote. Wouldn't it be nice not to have to bother? Because we assume that working is a bother, is a burden, is stressful, and that when the bell goes, it's like, I don't have to bother. But again, if we look at that closely, why is meditation a bother? Why are we relieved when it's over? Because of the way the mind holds its activity and that quality of doing. So that I feel it's very helpful to, when we look at how we set a direction towards peacefulness, towards clarity, towards concentration, focus of mind, and the effort that we make in training the mind, that we can set a direction, and we can make effort completely free of stress, completely free of any kind of burden or any feeling of it being a problem or a hassle, a bother. Otherwise, how could you have how could right effort be part of the Eightfold Path if every effort was somehow stressful? Right? That's how the logic works for me. So there has to be a way that we can work and we can have a goal that's not burdensome, not stressful. So this it all points to a right understanding, a right relationship to the effort that we make in meditation and the direction that we set. So rather than feeling any kind of directionality or any kind of effort is stressful, to see that, well, there has to be a way that we can, there can be samma sankappo, the right resolution, right intention, that is, there is a goal, but it's not based on self-view. It's not, I've got to get to that goal, I've got to get somewhere, or I won't be happy. But rather, there can be a goal. The Buddha spoke about that very regularly, the path and the goal, the magga and phala, the path and the fruit. Very, very commonly the Buddha spoke in this language. So there must be a way that there can be a goal, but that is free of self-view, free of ego-centered thinking. There has to be a way that effort can be made without me trying to get something, me trying to get somewhere. There has to be a way that effort can be made that is free of self-view and does not cause more dukkha, that effort can be made. We can work with a heart that is quite free and unburdened and unstressed. So I feel these are very useful principles to get to know, and to because then it doesn't just help us in the meditation hall, but also in the workplace and in our family life, in the social political world also, that these principles help us to be able to have a goal in life and have a direction that is, say, and to make effort in our work that's not stressful or burdensome or a bother, so that we're thinking, I can only be happy when all of this is over. When I retire, then. When I finish this project, then. When I finally finished, when the bell rings, then. So that we can change that way of thinking, that kind of attitude. So when we look at, the quality of right effort, and those of you who have listened to Luang Por Sumedho's teachings or read many of his books, that you'll be familiar with how much he talks about bhava tanha and vibhava tanha. So in the Buddha's description of the Four Noble Truths, then with second noble truth, the cause of dukkha is tanha, craving. Okay, very familiar. But then he's right in the very first discourse, in the turning of the wheel, he spelled out there's three kinds of desire that he names. So kama tanha, kama is that's the one when we think about craving or desire, that's what we think of. Craving for food, craving for comfort, craving for wealth, craving for sense pleasure. So that's when we think about craving, that's usually what comes to mind, the kind of obvious seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, more of that good stuff, yes. Get rid of the painful stuff, yes. That's what we think of, kama tanha. But for meditation, then obviously letting go of kama tanha is extremely important. But then there are these two quiet companions, the kind of like the outriders, the motorcycle outriders for the main cortege. There's bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. They're the outriders, so quietly in the background. So Luang Por Sumedho would spend a lot of time pointing to these two, the desire to become and the desire to get rid of. So very often when our meditation and our spiritual efforts are based on self-view, then it's these two, these quiet kinds of tanha that are operating. I need to become more concentrated. I need to get jhana. I need to get rid of my defilements. I need to get my chattering mind to be quiet. I need to develop more paramita. I want to become a stream enterer, at least. And so that's all bhava tanha. Vibhava tanha. I need to get rid of my chattering thoughts. I need to get rid of my defilements. So in that, you think, well, yeah, isn't that right? That's what it says in the book, Ajahn. Right here, look. Yeah. And so, yeah, we can find those kind of things in the book, but if we don't read them skillfully, then it's like, I am the genuine owner of these defilements. I am the owner of these chattering thoughts. They belong to me. If I can get rid of them, if I can wipe out those chattering thoughts and wipe out my defilements, there'll be me with no defilements, and that seems to be good. Better than me with defilements. But we're setting it up like, in terms of self-view. That's practicing Dhamma in terms of self-view. Or that I am not a stream enterer, I am not wise, I don't have insight, I need to develop the vipassana meditation so I will get insight, so I can become liberated in the future. I am an unliberated person, and if I do this now, I will become a liberated person in the future. You think, well, yes. That's what it says in the book, Ajahn. So yes and no. Because if we take it all very personally, like, and see it in personal terms, then we're establishing our practice based on self-view. So many years ago, this was a very, very constant theme. As I would say, back in the late 80s, early 90s, then Luang Por Sumedho would talk about this a lot. He'd say, if you create the idea, I'm an unenlightened person who's got to do something now to become enlightened in the future, then the practice is being based on self-view. So if with that as the basis, with ignorance as the basis, if you start with avijja, you end up with dukkha. If the basis is ignorance, then inevitably the result is frustration and dukkha, dissatisfaction. So he'd say we need to change the paradigm, change the way we see things from I'm an unenlightened person who's got to do something now to become enlightened in the future to being awake now. And not me being awake now, but just being awake now. The mind being awake to the I, me, my feelings arising and passing away. So, and I confess, I heard him say that dozens, if not hundreds of times. I thought, yeah, right, and didn't really understand it. Still continue to think, yeah, but my mind, I have got a lot of defilements and I need to get rid of them. And so when he said it, you could recognize, that's true, that's real, yes. But then the habits are so strong to see things in our familiar ways. But I would say that after 20, 30 years, okay, I finally understand what he was meaning, that I have more of a sense of that, and that I do feel it's very, very helpful to recognize those habits, and to see that as long as the practice of Dhamma is cast in terms of I and me and mine, I should get rid of, then if that's not challenged, then all our sincere and good-hearted efforts will result in more dukkha. They won't be as fully liberating as if those efforts were free of self-view, free of I and me and mine. So this is it's not easy to change our view, but at least we can recognize those habits, and that when we see that the enlightened mind, or the awake mind, it knows the personal qualities arising and passing away. Certainly we have these bodies, we have these personalities, we have our names, and yeah, there are these conditions in the material world. But in terms of Dhamma practice, as the mind looks closely, we can see that this aware quality that knows the personal feelings of the sensations of the body, our memories, our name, our life history and so on. It knows those qualities arising and passing away, but it's not in itself identified with those qualities. This which knows the person is not personal. Awareness, this quality of knowing, awakened awareness that knows the personal, it's not female or male, it's not Malaysian or British or American, or it's not tall or short, not old or young. None of those qualities really apply. It knows those qualities, it knows the personal qualities as they arise and pass away, but it is not defined by those qualities. It has no gender, no age, no nationality, no shape, no name, no color, no form. So in terms of helping the views to change, then recognizing the habits of mind is the first thing. Stage one is just seeing how much the mind automatically thinks in terms of my mind, my practice, what I want to become, what I want to get rid of. And so first of all, just noticing those habits, and then the part two is then challenging them, and then or recollecting this kind of teaching, say from Luang Por Sumedho, not me and my problems, but the aware mind knowing the way things are. He would say, changing the paradigm from me and my problems to here is the awake, aware mind, the Buddha mind, seeing the Dhamma, seeing the way things are. So rather than me and my problems, the Buddha seeing the Dhamma, the awake, aware mind, seeing the way things are. Not, I'm an unenlightened person who's got to do something now to become enlightened in the future, but being awake now. And then when those kind of reflections are applied, then even if it's just for half a second or a quarter of a second, just noticing the change of perspective, there's at least the experience here is like, when they say, not me and my problems, but the awake mind seeing the way things are. Oh. And then half a second later, I'm back again. And that the usual pattern is restored. But for that blink, that tiny sort of wink, that moment, it's like, there's that, oh. Then the intuitive wisdom, the wisdom of the citta knows, oh, that's right. Wow. Even though the water fills the hole back up again very, very quickly, like digging a hole at the beach in the sand, and the water flows in very fast. In that moment, there's a change of view. So in the development of insight, I would say those brief moments of clear seeing, where there's that, oh, that's different. Those are the moments to trust. That's I would say, in that moment, the hallucination of self-view is suspended. There's a glitch in the matrix, as they say. Oh, this is all just a constructed picture, right? Oh, right. And then to take note of how the inner landscape changes when those habits of self-view are challenged, where they're interrupted for a moment. So one of the ways, and when we have the guided meditation, I'll talk about this and give some instruction in this, is say just with in the meditation, just with our physical posture, we might think, okay, it's time to meditate, cross the legs, sit up, I should sit up straight. I'm slouched over, I should sit up straight. That's what I should do. Or maybe, I'm really stiff and tense, I'm rigid, I should relax. Right? This is, again, I'm not reading, it's, how did he know that? It's statistics, not psychic power. It's just the way we are as human beings. If we, rather than thinking, I'm slouched over, I need to sit up straight, my posture is terrible, I should sit up straight, and now I've got it right. So that, again, that's the habits of self-centered thinking guiding how the posture is arranged. I should sit up straight because I am slouching, or I am too tense, my shoulders are up round my ears, I need to relax. So you might think, well, yes, Ajahn, that's very standard. And but things that are standard or are familiar might not always be useful. So instead of me changing my posture, then what I like to encourage is, so if you notice that when you bring attention to your body that you're slouched over, I'll do a little demo for you. So okay, so here we are slouching. So rather than I should sit up straight, just bring the attention to the slouched feeling of the body. So I will not do anything except bring awareness to the feelings of my back. I didn't do anything. So this is when Luang Por Sumedho talks about trusting in awareness. If you bring awareness to just the body in an imbalanced state, the effect of that awareness is to bring about a state of balance. So I don't know if you could all see from that little demo, but that's the way it works for our whole life. If we bring awareness to things out of balance, then awareness is the integrating agent, it's the balancing agent. So I like to think of this as a self-adjusting universe. This is a self-adjusting system. And so rather than I, the managing director, has to sort of step in and grab the take control and run this meditation practice, if awareness is present, then the system will adjust. If you're tense and uptight and you're aware of that, the system adjusts. You don't have to do anything. The atta, the ego-centered habits, it's a self-adjusting system. And so when we take refuge in the Buddha, rather than just thinking in terms of I trust the Buddha Gautama as the great teacher, the great master, and the wisest of beings as a historical figure, that Buddha that we are taking refuge in is the Buddha small b, which is the awake, aware quality of the citta. So when we are trusting in awareness, it's exactly the same as Buddhaṃ Saranang Gacchāmi, taking refuge in the Buddha. And then the effect of taking refuge in the Buddha is that things come into balance. So again, this isn't magical, well, but it's rather a principle in our lives that we can draw upon, and then we can experience, we can know directly the good effects of trusting in awareness. So again, sometimes when we talk about non-attachment or being aware, again, like I was saying about sometimes we can have the impression that any kind of doing or choosing or setting direction, taking action is somehow interfering with the way things are. When we talk about non-attachment, or just being aware, just being awake. Sometimes we can take those instructions and think, okay, just be aware, and like trying to freeze ourselves and to kind of become like a video camera. It's like recording the data of this moment. And so I'm kind of exaggerating, but not by much. So that we can, just watch, just be aware, and we can take that instruction and feel like, okay, freeze. But it's not, because we can be aware of the mind making choices. We can be aware of the body as it adjusts itself. That awareness can be completely unattached and unentangled with things. So just being unattached or just being aware doesn't mean being completely passive or frozen. It means fully knowing the way things are, and we can know the mind making a choice. that makes sense. That non-attachment doesn't mean not making choices or not deciding. Otherwise, again, how could the Buddha have been embodying the Eightfold Path? How could there be Samma Sankappo, setting a direction? How could there be right effort if every kind of effort or choosing or action was somehow stressful or not in accordance with Dhamma? Again, if you can follow the reasoning. So there has to be a way that we make effort, we make choices with a heart of non-attachment. So I would say when there is that awareness, that awakened aware quality, when the heart is established in vicca rather than avijja, vicca, awakened awareness, then there's choices can be made, direction can be set, work can be done that's completely unstressful. That the Buddha walking and talking and establishing the Dhamma teachings and the Vinaya discipline, over 45 years, walking around northeast India, that was not an intrusion. He wasn't sort of attaching temporarily and then unattaching at other times when he's sitting with his eyes closed, but the heart was completely unattached, unbounded, unlimited by any kind of clinging or entanglement all the time, even as he's giving a Dhamma talk, even as he's establishing the Vinaya discipline, even as he's scolding monks who've been misbehaving. There's no attachment, even as those words are being chosen and action is being taken. So I feel this is a very important principle that we can use in our everyday lives, and that if we, in a situation like this today, a day of Dhamma reflection and meditation, we can, in a sense, learn the method, or develop a sense for the skillful attitude, and then we can apply that in our families, in our workplace, on the street, working with the rest of the other vehicles on the road, and that we are a part of. And then it's an enormous benefit to our lives. And as a footnote to that, isn't it interesting how they are traffic? Yeah. How many people here have ever had the thought, I am traffic for the other people? If you're driving a car, those of you who drive cars, it's like, no, the traffic was terrible, rather than I was contributing to clogging up the road. Yeah, unfortunately, I was being traffic for other people. How regrettable. No, it's like they have been in my way. The traffic was terrible. So we never think I was part of that terrible traffic. So that, again, the habits of self-centered thinking are very, very strong. So just little ways that we can notice how the mind creates that self-centered thinking, and then to catch that, know that, and let it be rejigged. Why are they traffic and I'm not? Interesting. How come I'm never traffic for all these good, getting in the way of all these good people who've got important places to get to? Isn't that interesting? So right there, you've got an instance of self-view, and that can be challenged, and we can change the thinking in relationship to that. One of the aspects of meditation then that supports this sort of change of view from self-centered to Dhamma-centered perspective, I would say, is the practice of loving kindness. And oftentimes we think of metta bhavana as like reciting the words of ahang sukhito homi, may I be happy, sabbe sattva sukhita hontu, may all beings be happy. And we think of metta bhavana as reciting those words and say encouraging that attitude of kindness, benevolence towards other beings. But I would say that also that metta is bigger than just the words of ahang sukhito homi and so on. It really it's most helpful to understand it as a basis for meditation and for the practice of Dhamma. I think it's first on the list of the Brahma Viharas for a good reason. It's like, okay, let's get this in place first. Lesson 1, metta. With respect to meditation, then that establishing an attitude of loving kindness, not just towards yourself as a concept, your own life, but having a genuine attitude of kindness towards your own body, your own thoughts, your emotions, your memories, your defilements, your good qualities. When we think of metta, it's one of the Brahma Viharas. It's so abundant, exalted, immeasurable. We think of it as a great, bright radiance that we can spread out around the world. But also, I would say, metta has two aspects. It has a receptive aspect and an expressive aspect, an aspect that takes things in, and an aspect that radiates things out. And so I like to compare the practice of metta to the breathing. That we have in-breath and out-breath. There's two parts. So I think metta also has the same two parts. And that like the in-breath is what brings the oxygen into the body, and that's what helps us stay alive. Metta is the receptive aspect of metta is what I like to call a radical acceptance. So the heart of metta is the heart that recognizes everything belongs. Here it is, whether I like it or not, this moment is exactly this way. So the English term being open-hearted, I think is very good in that respect. Very describes that quality of metta. Open-hearted, here it is, whether I like it or not, whether I approve of it or not, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, here it is. So that quality of radical acceptance, I feel, is the real life source of metta. And then the expressive side, may all beings be happy, is like the out-breath, is the result of that, or is a partner to that. But the real core of metta is that acceptance, a sense of recognizing everything belongs. So the heart of non-contention. So particularly when we have painful memories, or people have mistreated us, we have feelings of resentment towards people in the family, or the workplace, or the government, or political figures, like, how could she do that? How could he be that way? Or when I get my revenge, and so those are kind of unwholesome, unskillful feelings, but we can accept those. Like there can be those violent or averse, negative feelings in us. Acceptance doesn't mean approval. Again, those of you who've listened to Luang Por Sumedho's teachings will have heard him say that over and over and over. So, and I realize English is not the first language of most people here, but these two are quite different. Acceptance means, here it is, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, this is the way things are. Approval means, I'm glad that things are this way. I call this good, and I like this, I approve of this. Means I'm supportive of this quality. So to accept something, to accept your own violent or selfish thoughts, your own urge for revenge against your brother, it doesn't mean you like that or you think it's beautiful or good. It's just, here it is. And so you that quality of acceptance, so then that is recognizing this is the shape of things in this moment. It's this way. If you have a particular illness or a disability, that you won't necessarily like it or approve it. You're not glad that you've got diabetes or you've lost an arm or a foot, or you have heart disease. But here it is, and so that it's that readiness to work with that and not create negativity, aversion towards that, so that you are not dwelling in aversion. Is another way that Luang Por Sumedho would describe that. So that there's, in terms of working with the mind, working with the the discomfort of the body in meditation, that you're not setting anything up as an enemy or as a problem, but you're not pretending that the pain in your leg is likable, or that you're glad that it's there, but here it is. It's like this. And so that then you're not creating contention, negativity towards that, but rather there's an openness. And then with that, on the basis of that openness, then the quality of wisdom can be brought to bear, so that metta, I would say, ripens in wisdom, in the recognizing that when there's a real open-heartedness, then the faculty of wisdom recognizes this is wholesome, this is unwholesome, this is neutral. So that then what is wholesome, then there's the inclination to act upon and strengthen and support that. When it's unwholesome, then there's the intention, the effort to let go, to not follow that, to not support that. So that I say with loving kindness as a basis, then that supports the practice in a very, very direct way. So that we're not making our thoughts or our feelings, the discomfort of the body, into a problem or an obstacle, but rather it's what we consciously learn from. Speaking about bhavatanha vibhavatanha, that if we recognize those habits of self-centered, I've got a lot of distracted thinking, I need to get rid of my chattering thoughts, I need to develop more concentration, I need to be more focused, I want to develop jhana, and so on. If those habits of bhavatanha vibhavatanha, the desire to become and the desire to get rid of, when those are recognized, and then there's that quality of awareness recognizes that, those and knows them, then there's a natural letting go, rather than I should let go. Again, with the self-adjusting principle, it works not just with the body, but also with the mind and with the attitude. So that recognition of, here is an ambitious thought, or here is a negative attitude towards these defiled habits. So rather than I should get rid of my defilements, letting there be an awareness of those unskillful thoughts, unskillful attitudes, then the letting go happens on its own, based on awareness. Similarly, the wholesome qualities that arise, then the inclination to support and strengthen those, rather than my mind is now very focused, I'm getting really peaceful, I'm doing really well, my concentration is really good. You can see the I making and my making around the wholesome qualities too, but then when there's wisdom established, that awakened aware quality, there's a knowing of those I-making and my-making habits, and again, knowing those, feeling those, then the letting go of those happens based on that mindfulness and wisdom. It's not me doing the letting go. That makes sense? But rather, the letting go happens, just like when it's time for a leaf to fall off a tree, it falls off. There's no me doing the leaf falling. When the water flows around a rock, there isn't a committee meeting to decide, which side of the rock the water will flow. It does it on its own. So in exactly the same way, when there's the quality of mindfulness and wisdom recognizes the habits of clinging to success, or to and the wholesome, or to failure and the unwholesome, then the letting go happens on its own, and the establishment and strengthening happens on its own, guided by mindfulness and wisdom. So when the alternative to bhavatanha vibhavatanha, the desire to become, the desire to get rid of, then that's spelled out in the Buddha's description of samma vayama, right effort. So the four aspects of right effort are to restrain the unwholesome from arising, samvara, And if the unwholesome has arisen, to let go of it, pahana. To cultivate the wholesome, and if the wholesome has arisen, to sustain the wholesome in being. So restraining, letting go, cultivating, maintaining. Those are the four aspects of a right effort. So again, all of those can be actualized free of self-view. Not me restraining, me letting go, me cultivating, and me maintaining, but rather guided by mindfulness and wisdom, guided by that attunement of the heart to the present reality, that establishment of awake and awareness, then the restraining and letting go happens on its own, and the cultivating and maintaining happens on its own, as long as the element of awareness is there. There doesn't have to be a I or me or mine involved. And so that this is the way that we can work, and getting a feeling for how the right effort, Samma Vayama, operates free of I and me and mine. Then again, we can develop the method or the feeling for that here in the meditation hall on a day like today. But that then extends into the workplace, which is very handy, which means much less stressful at work, much easier to get along with other people, much easier to work with your family and the health of your body, any illnesses you might have, or stresses in the world around us. It translates into all the different say dimensions of our lives, I would suggest. So maybe the last thing to share, I've been speaking for nearly an hour now already, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but I started at 8:30, so it's now 9:30, almost. But again, we can explore this in the meditation period, but when we experience pain in the body, most of us think, my mind is all over the place, I want to learn how to meditate, I'll go along to Bubs, they do meditation, that'll help with my mind. So most people don't think, I'll sign up for meditation and that's going to be really uncomfortable for my body. It's mostly we're drawn towards meditation because of our mental world, and then very quickly, usually some 10 minutes into the first meditation session, we realize, my body is involved as well. The rupa, the body is very much part of the program. I didn't think about that. But we discover very quickly that the body doesn't just sit there comfortably for an hour or even half an hour while we work with our mind, but the feelings of the body are very dominant in the picture. So the principle of loving kindness and self-adjustment, I would say, also apply with respect to physical discomfort. So it's very natural we find a sitting posture, and the work of meditation is largely with working with the mind, but if we do experience physical pain in the body, then it's very easy for the mind to create aversion, negativity towards the pain. It's very natural. Pain is not very likable. So we don't, how marvelous is that ache in my leg, or that knife in my back. Yes, we don't think in that kind of a way. But rather it's uncomfortable and unpleasant. We want to get away from it. So it's natural for the mind to create aversion towards the pain and fear of what it's going to turn into, like, oh dear, my knee, what's going to happen? They're going to have to carry me out or wheel me out in a wheelchair. Yeah. So fear and aversion are the general reactions towards painful feeling. Again, I'm not reading anybody's mind. It's like, how did he know? It's like, again, this is just the way we are as human beings. So the advice that Luang Por Chah would give with respect to working with pain is that to not change the posture immediately, but if you're finding that the painful feeling is sort of distracting the mind from its meditation object, say mindfulness of breathing, then if the mind keeps going to the feeling of pain, then make the pain the object of meditation. Bring the attention to that particular place, and then notice both the physical sensations in that area, how the body is tensing up against the pain, and also the mental attitude, the feelings of aversion or fear and negativity. And so then he would encourage, at least for a few minutes, working with the painful feeling, to just see if you can relax the body in that area, if you can relax the attitude. And then and just stay with that, so that to see if it's possible to know the painful feeling and not to be creating aversion around it. So that if even for a moment there can be the recognition of, oh, there can be painful feeling and the mind can be quite at peace with it, then that's a very, very useful insight, a very useful recognition. Oh, there can be pain, but it can be absolutely not a problem. Again, that translates very helpfully into our family life, working life, social life, because it works too with emotional pain. There can be emotional pain, and the mind can be at peace with it. So then, again, having a quality of non-attachment or observing doesn't mean that we don't take action, but rather in that principle of self-adjusting, self-adjusting universe, a self-adjusting system, to bring attention to that and to know the feeling that's there. And then when there comes a moment when there's a recognition of, okay, now that joint is really under strain, the body is not able to work with that discomfort in a balanced way, to let the posture change, to let the body change its posture based on kindness for the body rather than aversion and fear towards the pain. So if the posture is changed based on attunement and kindness, then the result will be peacefulness. There's a sympathy with the body. You're working with the body's limitations, and then because of the intention behind it is peaceful and is kind, the result is a similar kind of calmness and peacefulness. If we've reacted against the painful feeling out of fear and aversion, then there might be a moment of relief, like, thank goodness that's over. I am relieved because I don't have to have that painful feeling anymore. Then we're planting the seeds for more fear, because then, oh dear, but what about the other knee? Or it's going to come back again in a minute, I know. And so we've created the causes for more tension, more fear, more aversion. Again, I'm not reading anybody's mind, that's just how these things tend to work. So, if instead of reacting against the painful feeling, we turn towards that, rouse the quality of awareness and attunement to that, and then when there's a sense that okay, that's the right amount, this is the natural limit has been reached, just like when we're eating. If we pay attention, we know when we've had enough food. It's called matanyuta, knowing the right amount. Then matanyuta, that principle, applies similarly with painful feeling. Okay, that's the right amount. This is what the body can tolerate. If I force things and just out of will stay with this, then damage might be caused, which won't be helpful to anybody. So rather than just out of force and will, just enduring more and more painful feeling, and then damaging the body, that doesn't help, but rather getting a sense for that matanyuta, the right amount. Okay, this is now the body has reached its limit, and let the posture be changed. Then there's the result of that is peacefulness and ease, and not the creation of more causes for dukkha or difficulty.